illustrating Star Wars Illustrated. So a few years back, I had the pleasure of illustrating a bunch of trading cards for a project called Star Wars Illustrated. And what this was trading cards based on the original Star Wars radio dramas. And I was one of several artists that got to do this. And this was kind of fun for me because the style that they wanted more of a comic book style. And I was happy to do that. A little bit different for me than doing the fully painted work that I do. I probably like my fully painted work better, although these are kind of nice because they're a little bit quicker to do. Now, the cards that you see in the set are actually just line art by yours truly, and then for this set, they were actually colored by Brian Miller at Hi-Fi Color, so they have a really cool kind of comic book look to them. Well, since then, I just like finishing my own original artwork, and by not repainting, but adding my own color to the originals, I'll be honest, they sell for more money. I'll talk about this when I get to this. This is one of the cards kind of for the set, and this one is fully painted. I'll get to why a little bit later. But originally, these were just black and white line art, but I knew if I went in and just added a little bit of color, I knew that I would be able to sell these. And I actually don't have all of these here. George Lucas owns a few, and I have sold a few to collectors. Now, what these cards look like when they're done is they look like this. They're trading cards. Kind of see the details. In here you can see the color that, again, Brian Miller at Hi-Fi Color. So I wanted to talk about these cards, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. I have some good juice behind the scenes. Some of the process that I had working with Lucasfilm and Topps. Now, what this was for, you might be wondering, what is this? It's Star Wars, but some of it looks different. Well, way back in the day, there was this thing called the radio dramas, and on the radio, they had this dramatization of Star Wars, and they actually re-recorded voices, all new voices with the actors, most of the actors, and kind of recreated the story, added in some new scenes. Some of these scenes are things that were actually filmed for the film, and some were things based on the script that they did not film, and then some things are just kind of brand new, fleshing out the story, adding some things that would help tell it, but in a way where you didn't have visuals to look at. Well, the cool thing about this trading card set is now you do have visuals to look at, which was really interesting. So this was a multimedia project through a number of Star Wars licensees because Highbridge Audio was re-releasing the dramas in high quality, and I actually got to illustrate the cover. There's actually two different covers. I got to illustrate one of them for the CD, and you can see here it's kind of this nice deluxe packaging. There's my artwork again on this booklet on the inside, and then on flip this open, there's my artwork again on the actual CD, and then it comes with this limited edition trading card, kind of plugging the actual set. Now, another interesting thing that I wanted to chat about really quick before I get into these cards specifically is a lot of times when you create artwork for one of the official licensees or art directly for Lucasfilm, they own it. They own the art, and then they get to use it however they want for as many projects as they want. So I have an example here where you can kind of see here is art that I created for, this is one of the cards in the set. I actually don't have the original for this anymore. And then later, that might be used, for example, this is the Star Wars Day at a Time calendar. And so I have a lot of artwork in this calendar, excuse me, as well. And some of you might be saying, hey, wait a minute, if you illustrated this card, and of course I got paid for it, they should pay you again when they use your art again. Well, not if that's what the contract states they can do. And you know what? I will be the last person to complain. Star Wars has treated me very well in my career, and it's also paved the way for me to be able to do a lot of other things. So I am the last person to complain about it. But it is interesting because sometimes after creating Star Wars art for one product, you'll see it somewhere else, and you'll see your art appearing on mugs and t-shirts, and you'll walk into a store and you'll be like, oh, wow, I actually think it's kind of cool. You see your art somewhere else you weren't expecting to see it. So kind of interesting how that plays out. Let's get to the goods. So Star Wars Illustrated. So there's a lot of scenes, and especially at the beginning of the story, that they added in with Princess Leia on Alderaan. And this is, this is kind of interesting. It's almost like The Sound of Music. And just kind of a beautiful shot of the princess enjoying some nature. Now, this was interesting. This was actually before Rogue One, and they wanted a slightly older Bail Organa interacting with Princess Leia. And this is actually in the radio dramas from the late 70s, believe it or not, at least the audio portion of this. So then I got to illustrate, and we know obviously Jimmy Smits is the actor portraying Bail Organa in the films. So I made him look a little bit older. I probably made him look a little bit older than you see him in Rogue One, but I just felt this was maybe a little bit closer to the age he would have looked. Okay, now I don't have the full art for this, but I do have this piece here, and I wanted to talk about making changes. Actually, I have a couple things I want to talk about in regard to making changes, but in this case here, in the original art for this card here, get focus on that. Maybe get an angle here where I don't have the glare. So this is really interesting because in the radio dramas, which used to be considered canon, I don't think they would be considered canon now, but Princess Leia actually has a meeting shortly before the events that we see opening in the film, where she meets Darth Vader as kind of like a diplomat, and it's like this friendly meeting where, they kind of know each other from, being, I guess, senators in the Galactic Republic and all that politics stuff that some Star Wars fans, myself included, aren't into as much. But what's interesting is they kind of have this meeting, and Darth Vader's being a little snarky. He suspects the princess is up to something. What's really interesting about the story is then she leaves, and shortly after, Darth Vader realizes she lied. And that's when in the Star Destroyer, you see them chasing down the Rebel blockade runner. And that's why it's really interesting. Then when Princess Leia is captured, the way that Darth Vader is kind of talking to her and calling her a liar, it's really interesting. He's calling her bluff, calling her out based on this conversation they had before. It's really just kind of an interesting scene and really fun to illustrate. The thing that I wanted to bring up is in the original artwork, I actually drew Vader slightly different, and his body was kind of facing forward a little bit more, and he wasn't really facing her as much. And I had to kind of agree with this change. This was something that Lucasfilm wanted me to change Darth Vader and have her kind of addressing Princess Leia a little bit more. I was happy to do that. Well, because I had already illustrated the artwork, the pencils were approved, and because I inked it, you can't really erase that. And I didn't want to just like use a bunch of whiteout on the actual art. So what I did is I illustrated Darth Vader again, like so, and then in Photoshop, cut this out. Now again, this was just black and white art at first before I painted it again. And then that line art was in Photoshop inserted into this image right here. Voila. So sometimes you're making changes like that. There aren't many that I've had to do in my career, thankfully, as a Star Wars artist, but this is one of them. All right, you probably have seen, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably familiar with some of the bonus scenes that were cut out of the original Star Wars with Biggs Darklighter. So a fun trivia, I think I shared this in another video, but a lot of people may not know that Princess Leia gets this awesome blaster that she shoots one of the stormtroopers with. Where does she get this blaster? She gets it from Captain Antilles. And of course, Captain Antilles unfortunately finds his fate at the hands of Darth Vader shortly after. All right, so some of you, I want to kind of share a story here that was really interesting about this project. So this project, you might be wondering why, what is this weird apparatus that R2-D2 has right here, and why is it facing towards R5-D4? True story, in the radio dramas, R2-D2 is trying to help fix R5-D4 because R2-D2 is just, he's just such a pal. He's a really good, he's a good lad trying to help. Oh wait, or maybe he's sabotaging. You know what? R2, you're horrible. Actually, now that I think of it, I think he purposely sabotaged R5-D4 so they would have to pick R2. That's right. That's what happens. R2, you. So some really interesting stuff. I wanted to share kind of what happened with this set and how I went from illustrating 10 cards to, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 40 cards in this set. So originally the idea was that there were going to be 10 artists. They wanted to have kind of a comic book style with line art, which again, I was happy to do. The idea was that there are 100 cards exactly in the set, and they thought it would be really cool to have 10 artists and have each of the 10 artists doing 10 cards. So I was thrilled to have 10, very grateful. Well, what ended up happening is over time, 3 of the other artists either flaked out or just couldn't commit, and kind of last minute, Topps realized, oh my gosh, we need help, we need more cards illustrated, and they turned to me, and not just me to do 10 more, but to ultimately do, I believe, 30 more cards, if I'm not mistaken. And the reason why I want to bring that up, it's not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I have branded myself as the artist that will not let you down. I always come through on time, getting my work completed, and I get it done on time. I can work with any deadline thrown my way. And so I've just kind of branded myself as the go-to person that companies, studios, publishers, they know they can count on me to get the work done. I'm a professional. So I was really grateful, and it was kind of an honor that when push came to shove and they just needed to get stuff done, they knew if they turned to me that I wouldn't let them down. These are some interesting cards here because these are additional scenes in Mos Eisley with some characters that you hear in the radio dramas, but now you get to see them for the first time. This also was interesting. I think they based Jabba the Hutt off of the script, and they thought it would be interesting because at first Jabba the Hutt wasn't a space slug, and when they cut this, this scene didn't make it originally. This didn't make it into the film. Of course, they redid it for the special editions, but this is the way that it was filmed with this actor right here. Super interesting. So, in addition to the CD and all of the cards here, Star Wars Insider magazine wanted to get in on the fun, and they wanted to have an issue released with a very special trading card. And so I was able to kind of put my own spin and my own style into this trading card. And rather than having it be illustrated with this kind of comic book style like you see here, this was really fun because I got to illustrate kind of my usual, it's a little bit closer to the painting style that I normally do. And so this was a free trading card that came bagged with the Star Wars Insider magazine. There's another video that I have that either I released previously or it's coming out soon, where I actually talk about this piece and I talk about how I achieved depth with the foreground, middle ground, and background. So if you haven't seen that video yet, look for it. The Princess. Again, this was just line art that was colored digitally by Brian Miller at Hi-Fi Color. Brian has colored a lot of comic books, but he's also an artist in his own right. He's very, very good. But again, these, once I had the line art, I wanted to paint them so that, I'll be straight up, so I could sell them for more money. Full color artwork, in my experience, always sells for more and sells quicker than just black and white line art. So going in and just adding some simple color has helped me do that. And that's the reason why I don't have all, I think 40 cards that I did. I don't think I have them all here. I'm sure of it that I don't have them all here. But that's the fact, Jack. So anyway, thank you for kind of indulging me and kind of taking a trip down memory lane and sharing some of these fun stories. And I hope you have enjoyed them and got a little something out of it. More coming soon. In fact, I have a lot more cards and a lot more stories, some really good juicy bits coming up with illustrating The Empire Strikes Back illustrated series, also based on the radio dramas. Can't wait to share that with you. All right, gang, I will see you guys soon. Be well, and I'll catch up with you next week.